Mrityunjayaya Rudraya, Neelakantaya Shambhave, Amriteshaya Sarvaya, Mahadevaya Te Namaha. Within the sacred unfolding of the Liṅga Purāṇa, the path of Lord Śiva is not something to be understood through intellect, but something to be recognized within oneself. These stories are not distant myths, they are mirrors revealing the subtle layers of identity, fear, and truth that live within us. They guide the seeker not outward but inward toward a realization that cannot be given, only uncovered. The story of sage Śveta begins in profound stillness. He is not surrounded by disciples or engaged in ritual. He sits alone, withdrawn from the world, in a cave that reflects the inner space he has already entered. Time has passed, the body has aged, and the moment of death has arrived. There is nothing left to hold on to, no role, no relationship, no identity to protect, and yet there is one disturbance within him. His awareness rests completely in Lord Śiva, unwavering and whole. When Yama, the Lord of Death, appears, he does not come as a symbol or abstraction. He comes as law, as the certainty that governs all existence. Everything that is born must end. And Yama's presence carries authority, inevitability, and finality. For most, this is where fear arises, where the mind grasps and resists. But sage Śveta does not respond in this way. He does not argue, plead, or attempt to escape. Instead, he turns even more deeply inward, dissolving further into the presence of Rudra, Mahadev. The Lord of Death casts his nose, and sage Śveta is bound. Outwardly, it appears that death has prevailed. The body is restrained, the process has begun, and all signs point toward the inevitable. Yet, something subtle becomes visible here. Sage Śveta's awareness remains untouched. He does not identify with what is being taken. Even in that bondage, there is freedom. Even at the edge of dissolution, there is stillness. And then, Lord Śiva reveals himself, not as someone arriving from elsewhere, but as a presence that can no longer be overlooked. In that presence, the Lord of Death's authority fades, not through conflict, but through irrelevance. Death has no hold over that which is not identified with the body. Sage Śveta is not saved from death, but he is no longer defined by it. What remains is not survival, but liberation. The second story from the Liṅga Purāṇa is the story of sage Dadhīca. The story of Dadhīca unfolds through movement and confrontation. A sage rooted in knowledge encounters a king established in power. What begins as a simple disagreement slowly reveals something deeper. Each stands firmly in their own identity, one grounded in wisdom, the other in sovereignty. And beneath both the king and the sage, there remains a subtle sense of I. The king, Kshupa, asserts his supremacy, identifying himself with the cosmic order, while sage Dadhīca responds from the depth of spiritual insight. Their words carry truth, but also identity, and so what begins as dialogue unfolds into conflict. In the moment of force, the thunderbolt strikes. The sage falls, the body is broken, and the argument silenced. And in that fall, something deeper is exposed. Power can affect the body, and knowledge alone cannot prevent the fall. Both power and knowledge, when held through identity, remain within limitation. But sage Dadhīca did not rise through resistance. He turns inward. At the threshold of death, there is remembrance. Not as a thought, but as recognition. Anchored in Mahadev, something within him shifts. His strength is no longer drawn from position or argument, but from a place untouched by both. When the sage rises again, he is no longer the same. The forces that once overpowered him no longer reach him. The thunderbolt loses its effect, and even the greatest weapons fall away, not because all the weapons are weakened, but because he's no longer standing where they can act. And then quietly, a deeper truth reveals itself. A simple blade of grass, insignificant in form, becomes a force beyond measure. Not because of what it is, but because of the consciousness behind it. It is not the instrument, but the state of being that holds power. Witnessing this, the king Śiva changes. The certainty he once held begins to dissolve. The identity he defended loses its ground, and what remains is a quiet clarity. The need to assert fades, and in its place, something is simply seen. These two stories from the Liṅga Purāṇa move differently, one through stillness, the other through conflict, but they arrive at the same place. Sage Śveta reveals a freedom untouched by death, and Sage Dadhīca reveals a strength untouched by force. One is silent and inward, the other is dynamic and outward. Yet, both point to the same recognition that what is established in truth cannot be shaken by fear, cannot be broken by force, and cannot be bound by time. And slowly it becomes personal. What is feared is not death itself, but the loss of identity. What is protected is not truth, but the idea of self. And as long as identity remains tied to what changes, there will be effort, fear, and struggle. But when that identity loosens, not as an idea, but in lived awareness, something shifts. Death remains, but it no longer threatens. Power will still exist, but it no longer defines. The world will still continue, but it no longer binds. Nothing new is gained and nothing external is conquered. Only something quiet becomes clear, that what you are was never born and has never been touched by anything that comes and goes. And in that seeing, the journey ends where it always began, in the quiet, unchanging presence of Mahadev within. May Jagatpita Mahadev bless us all. Keep seeking, keep chanting, keep surrendering. Om Namaḥ Śivāya.